In this video, we are going to learn about JavaScript for loop, which is one of the most useful and powerful feature of the language. Now, when we talked about a else statement, I mentioned that it's a control structure and also that there are more control structures. So, one of the other control structures are loops. So, what are loops and why do we need them? Loops are a fundamental aspect of every programming language because they basically allow us to automate repetitive tasks, so tasks that we have to perform over and over again. And here I like to use the analogy of a washing machine. Imagine if you had to wash your clothes by hand one by one every time they get dirty. That would be very tedious and time consuming. But thanks to the invention of the washing machine, you can just put your clothes in, press a button, and let the machine do the work for you. That's exactly what loops do in programming. They let you run a block of code multiple times without having to write it over and over again. This makes our code more concise, efficient, and easy to maintain. Now, in JavaScript, we have different kinds of loops, each with its own syntax and purpose. In this video, we will focus on the for loop, which is the most common and versatile type of loop. But before we get into the details of the for loop, let me briefly introduce you to the other types of the loop that JavaScript offers. Now, the second loop, which is after the for loop, is the for in loop. Now, this loops iterate over the properties of an object and execute a block of code for each property. For example, we can use this loop to print the name and value of each property of an object. After this, we have for of loop. This loops iterates over the values of an iterable object such as an array or a string and execute a block of code for each value. For example, we can use this loop to print each element of an array or each character of a string. And after this, we have while loop. This loop executes a block of code as long as a specified condition is true. For example, we can use this loop to run a code until the user enters a valid input. Now at last, we have the do while loop. Now this loop is similar to the while loop, except that it executes the block of code at least once before checking the condition. For example, we can use this loop to run a code and then ask the user if they want to repeat it. And these are the different kind of the loops that JavaScript supports. And we will cover them in more depth in the future videos. But for now, let's focus on the for loop and see how it works and how to use it. Now this for loop is the most basic and widely used loop in JavaScript. It allows us to run a block of code a fixed number of times based on these expressions that we specify. The syntax of the for loop is as follows. Here the initial expression is executed only once before the loop starts. It is usually used to declare and initialize a variable that acts as a counter for the loop. Then the condition is evaluated before each iteration of the loop. If the condition is true, the code block is executed, and if the condition is false, the loop is terminated. The condition is usually a comparison between the counter variable and a limit value. The update expression is executed after each iteration of the loop. It is usually used to increment or decrement the counter variable so that the loop can progress towards the end. Let's see an example of how we can use our for loop to print the number from 1 to 10. Now before showing you this example, I want to show you how we need to do this without using our for loop. Now to print the number from 1 to 10, we need to create 10 console.log. Now the first one is to print 1, then second one is for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Now I am just changing the values, and this is how we can print numbers from 1 to 10 without using our for loop. Now as you can see, by doing this, we need to write 10 lines of code just to print these numbers into our console. And now we are going to do the same thing but using our for loop. Now in order to do this, first I am going to use the for keyword, then parentheses. Now in here, we need to initialize a variable I with the value of 1. So let I is equal to 1. And this is our first expression. Now after writing this, we need to use semicolon. Then here we need to specify the condition, which is I less than equal to 10. Now after writing our condition again, I am using semicolon, and finally we have our last expression, which is the update expression. Now here we are going to use I plus plus. Now here in this first expression, we are initializing our variable, which is I, and we are assigning it value of 1. Now in this second expression, we are saying that if I is less than or equal to 10, then do this. Now here we are using our increment operator, which means that this I will be increased by 1 after each iteration. Now at last, we have our code block, and here we only want to print the value of this I variable. So here I am using console.log and then I. Now if we run this code, we will get the following output. And now you can see these console.log from this position to this is coming from these lines of code. And then these logs are coming from line number 617, which is this line. So this loop has executed 10 times and printed the number from 1 to 10. Now we can also use this for loop to print the number in reverse order. In order to do this, we just need to change the value of I to 10. Then here, for this condition, we can write if I is greater or equal to 1, then do I minus minus. Now here we are using our decrement operator, which will then decrease our I variable by 1 after each iteration. Now if I hit save, you can see now our numbers are in reverse order. First we have 10, then 9, then 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. Now as you can see, to do this same thing, here we are using our loop, which makes our life a lot easier. Here we are using just 2 lines of code to do this same thing. Now we mostly use for loop to iterate over an array and perform some operation on each element of the array. For example, to print the elements of an array, we can do like this. I just created this array which have 5 elements: apple, banana, orange, mango and grapes. Now after this, we need to store the length of our fruits array into a variable. So let length is equal to fruits dot length. Now after this, we are going to use our for loop, and here we can say let I is equal to 0, which is our first expression. Now the second one is our condition, and here we can say if I is less than the fruit length, which is this one, then we can say I plus plus, and then our block of code that we want to execute. Now here to print the each and every element of this fruit array, we can write console.log, Then the name of our array is fruits, then square brackets. Now here we can write this I variable. Now if I hit save, you can see each and every element which is in our fruit array is printed. First one is apple, then banana, then orange, mango and grapes. Now maybe you are thinking how this is working. Now the first time when this loop will run, the value of this I variable is 0. So that is why we are getting apple, because the index of our apple is 0. And then when the second time our loop will run, the value of our I variable is 1. That is why here we have banana. And then this loop will continue to run until the condition that we specified here becomes true. Now here, just to show you what is the value of this length, I am just logging the value, and you can see we have our length which is 5. So here basically we are saying that if I is less than 5, then do I plus plus. Now we can also use this for loop to perform some calculations on the elements of an array, such as finding the sum or the average. For example, to find the sum of an array of numbers, we can do like this. First we need to create an array of numbers. Let numbers is equal to an array. Then here we have 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. Now after this we are going to initialize a variable. Let sum is equal to 0. Then we need to use our for loop, and again here we can say let I is equal to 0. Then if I is less than numbers dot length, then we need to write I plus plus. So here again we are increasing our value of I by 1 after each iteration. Then in our block of code we can write sum plus equal to numbers, then our brackets, and here for our index we will use I. Now if I hit save and if we log this sum variable, and here you can see we have our sum which is 150. And this is how we can perform calculations on our array by using our for loop. Now again, here we have declared and initialized an array of numbers and then a variable sum with the value of 0. Then we have used our for loop to iterate over this array and added each element to this sum. After the loop's end, we have printed the value of our sum variable in our console. And now that is it for today's video. And in this video, we have learned about JavaScript for loops and how to use them to automate repetitive tasks. We have seen the syntax of the for loop and how to specify the initial expression, condition, and update expression. We have also seen some example of how we can use the for loop to print numbers, iterate over arrays, and perform calculations. For loops are very useful and powerful. We will encounter them a lot in our coding journey. So make sure you practice them well and try to create your own examples. And I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more exciting web development tutorials. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment below. Keep coding, keep creating, and I will see you in the next video.